My name is Theo Marsden. I am 26 and I live alone in a small flat above an old laundrette on the edge of Manchester. The floors creak every time I walk across them. The sofa is this battered thing I picked up from a local advert for £50, and my coffee maker is probably older than I am. It drips slowly, as if it has all the time in the world. During the day, I work at an electronics repair shop in the city centre, fixing laptops, phones, and fried circuit boards. Nothing glamorous, just steady enough to cover the rent and keep the lights on. At night, I go for runs through the wet streets, headphones in, listening to lo-fi beats that make the rain feel less lonely. I keep telling myself this routine is fine. It is predictable and safe. I'm not great at dating. The last 3 dates I went on were reminders of why I should not bother. One girl talked non-stop about her ex, as if I were her therapist. Another ghosted me mid-conversation over text. The third got so drunk she tried to sell me on some cryptocurrency I had never heard of. So when I matched with Lila on the app, I figured this would be my last shot. She was 23, a communications student with sharp photos and clever captions that made her seem quick-witted. Her profile said she liked indie films and rainy walks, classic Manchester stuff. I thought, why not? One more try. We agreed to meet at this small restaurant in the city centre. It had red brick walls, golden candlelight flickering on the tables, soft jazz playing in the background, and big windows streaked with rain. The kind of place that feels cozy on a drizzly evening. I arrived early, shaking off my umbrella at the door. A server approached me right away, her brown hair tied back neatly, apron spotless. She had this calm posture, like she could navigate rush hour without breaking a sweat. Her name tag said Evie. "Table for 1 or 2?" she asked, her voice warm but professional, as if she had said it 1,000 times but still meant it. "2," I replied. "I am waiting for someone." She nodded and led me to a table by the window. I sat down, picking up the menu like a shield, trying not to check my phone every few seconds. The rain tapped against the glass, blurring the streetlights outside. I scanned the options: burgers, salads, some salmon dish, anything to pass the time. Lila arrived a short while later. She looked just like her pictures: blonde hair, sharp cheekbones, black dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But her smile switched on and off like it was on power-saving mode. She slid into the seat across from me, setting her phone face up on the table, the screen already lighting up with notifications. "Hey," she said, glancing around the room before her eyes settled on me. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, trying to start easy. "Fine," she replied. She picked up her menu, but her fingers were already tapping at her phone. Her nails clicked against the screen like a countdown timer for my patience. I tried again. "Work was all right for me. I fixed a motherboard that got fried this morning. It felt like a win." She shrugged without looking up. "So you just fix broken phones and stuff?" "Yeah, pretty much." I forced a smile. "What about you? Communications major, right?" "Mm-hmm." More tapping. No follow-up. I shifted in my seat, feeling the awkwardness settle in. To fill the silence, I told her a real story from work. This one time, I had an aunt bring in her husband's old phone after he passed. It was water damaged, but she was desperate to recover the photos. I stayed up all night pulling the data off it. When she got them back, she hugged me like I had brought him back to life. It made the job feel worth it, you know? Lila glanced up briefly. "Cool." Her eyes dropped back to her screen. "There is this guy on TikTok who does that. He is huge. You seen him?" I shook my head. "Nah." She shrugged again, like I had missed out on the meaning of life. Evie came back to take our orders. Lila spoke first, sharp and to the point. "Salmon, no coriander, not even a speck." Evie jotted it down, her expression steady as ever. "Got it." She turned to me. "And for you?" "Burger, medium, please. Simple, safe." The food came out, and the meal dragged on in mostly silence, broken by her phone buzzing and her nails clicking. I ate slowly, watching the rain streak the window. Evie passed by a couple of times, refilling water without a word, but I caught her glancing over, not curious exactly, but like she could see I was stuck in some familiar kind of failure. When she asked, "Everything all right here?" Her eyes lingered on me a beat longer than polite. I nodded, swallowing down the truth. Lila finished her salmon and stood up abruptly. I have to go. Thanks for dinner. No offer to split the bill. No real goodbye. She just walked out, heels clicking on the floor, vanishing into the rain like she had never been there. I sat there with half a burger gone cold, feeling like I had been left in a spotlighted room. The jazz felt mocking now. Evie came over to clear the plates. She stacked them quietly, then paused, her hand lightly touching the edge of the table like she was weighing something. Then she said it, soft but clear, "If I were you, I would stay." I looked up. She met my eyes straight on, not flirting, not pitying, just real. Then she turned and walked away, as if those words were just a fact that had slipped out. I paid the bill, tipping more than usual, and stepped out into the rain. The streets were slick, headlights reflecting off puddles. But that sentence stuck with me, clinging like the damp on my jacket. Later that evening, when the payment confirmation email came through, I noticed a small note at the bottom, something handwritten in the system, maybe. It was not much, just a quiet invitation without naming it. Enough to make me feel like I was not entirely invisible. The following day, I told myself I was not going back. That sentence from Evie was just a kind thing a server says to a guy who got ditched, nothing more. I was not the type to chase after a random comment. But after my shift ended, with the rain still drizzling outside the shop, I found myself in the car heading into the city center anyway. The wipers swiped back and forth, smearing the streetlights. It felt like something was pulling me, or maybe I was just tired of going home to that creaky flat with the same lo-fi playlist. The bell above the door jingled when I stepped in. The place smelled the same, warm with hints of grilled meat and fresh bread. Evie was behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine. She looked up, and her eyes met mine before her mouth curved into a small smile. "Back already?" she said, as if she had half expected me. I stood there, feeling a little daft at the entrance. "Yeah, guess I am turning into a regular." She chuckled softly, a sound that cut through the patter of rain on the windows. "Your usual spot?" She did not wait for an answer, just grabbed a mug and started pouring. Black, no sugar. I blinked. "How did you know?" She shrugged, like it was no big deal. "I remember." She led me to the same table by the window, setting the coffee down with a napkin underneath. I sat, watching the steam rise, and noticed something on the napkin. A quick sketch of a screwdriver, rough but recognizable, like a little nod to what I had mentioned about my job the previous evening. "You draw that?" I asked, picking it up. "You said you fix stuff," she replied, leaning against the chair across from me for a second. "Figured you would get it." I laughed, the first real one in what felt like days. It loosened something in my chest. The restaurant was quieter that night, just a couple at the bar and an older chap reading a book in the corner. The jazz was softer, blending with the rain. We started talking. At first it was light, about weird customers. She told me about this one chap who sent back his steak 3 times because it was not medium rare enough, whatever that meant. I countered with a story from work. A university student who swore his laptop had just got wet, but it reeked of energy drink. Evie laughed, a real laugh that crinkled the corners of her eyes. It made the room feel less empty. I asked about her. "You always work the evening shift?" I observed. "It must have been a slow one. I used to live in London," she said, glancing around before sitting down for a minute. "Moved here after things did not work out. Divorce, not a pretty one. Manchester felt like a fresh start, you know? Rainy but clean." I nodded. "Sorry, that sounds rough." She waved it off, but not in a dismissive way. It was. "But you learn to keep going." Her eyes met mine again, steady. "What about you, Theo? What is behind the circuits?" I hesitated, then told her about my dad. He used to tinker with old radios in the garage, pulling them apart and putting them back together just for the hell of it. When he passed a few years back, he left me his toolbox. There is this one rusty screwdriver I still use every day. Every time I pick it up, it feels like he is standing over my shoulder, showing me the right angle to turn. I finished, feeling exposed, like I had shared too much too soon. Evie did not laugh, did not change the subject. She just looked at me and said, "That is not silly. It is real." The word hung there, simple but heavy. No one had called anything about me real in a while. The rest of the evening blurred, me sipping coffee, her checking on the other tables, but she would swing by with a refill or a quick comment. When it was time to close, she did not rush me out, just placed another napkin under my empty mug, this one with little rain clouds and a single sunbeam breaking through. I went back the next evening and the one after. Sometimes I would just order coffee, nursing it while watching the rain. Other times I would get dinner, a burger or pasta. But Evie always remembered the details. If it was later in the evening, she would switch to decaf without me asking. "Do not want you up all night," she would say with a wink. The doodles kept coming, a wonky coffee cup one time, a running shoe the next, like she was picking up on bits of me I had mentioned in passing. The restaurant started feeling like a breather, a place where I did not have to perform. And Evie, she was the only person in the city who made me feel like I did not have to pretend everything was fine, like she saw the cracks and did not mind them. Those weeks blurred into a new rhythm. Days at the shop passed by, cracking open laptops, soldering tiny wires, dealing with customers who swore their devices had just stopped working, as if it were a mystery. But evenings pulled me back to the restaurant, not because I was chasing something dramatic. It was quieter than that, a place where I could sit without the weight of pretending. I would show up after work, sometimes still in my work shirt smelling of flux and coffee from the break room. Evie would spot me from across the room, nod once, and I would settle into my spot by the window. One night the rain was coming down heavily, sheets of it slapping the glass like it wanted in. The place was dead, maybe 2 tables occupied. Evie flipped the sign to close a little early, stacking chairs with that efficient grace she had. I stood up, figuring it was my cue to head out, but she caught my eye from behind the counter. "Fancy a run?" she asked, wiping her hands on a towel. "I usually go after my shift. It clears the head." I blinked. Running in this weather? But her face was serious, maybe a little hopeful. "Sure," I said, surprising myself. "Why not?" We stepped out the back door into the alley where the rain echoed off the bins. She had a hoodie stashed in her bag, and I zipped up my jacket. We jogged toward the park by the river, puddles splashing under our shoes. My legs burned at first. I was not used to company on these runs, but Evie kept a steady pace, not too fast, like she knew I needed to ease in. We dodged a low branch, and I slipped on a wet path, nearly face-planting. She laughed, grabbing my arm to steady me. "Watch your step, fixer," she teased. I grinned, breathless. "Your playlist is distracting me. What is this, indie folk? Sounds like a rainy day soundtrack." She shot back, "Better than your lo-fi elevator music." We kept going, the river rushing beside us, lights from the bridge reflecting on the water. After a while, we slowed to a walk, then stopped at a wooden bench under a dripping tree. Evie pulled a thermos from her backpack, hot coffee, still steaming. She poured some into the lid and passed it to me. We sat there, passing the cup back and forth, the warmth cutting through the chill. No one spoke for a minute. The rain drummed on the leaves above us. It was not awkward. It was easy, like we did not need to fill the space. Another night after closing, Evie sat at the bar, untying her apron, her shoulders slumping a little. I asked if she was all right. She looked at her empty coffee cup, fingers tracing the handle. "You ever want something different?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "I want to open a coffee shop. Small, good music, real beans, no one yelling about coriander in their salad." She smiled faintly, but it faded. "But I have got responsibilities, things that make jumping scary." She did not elaborate right away. After a pause, she told me about Oscar, her son, 8 years old, obsessed with drawing superheroes. He stayed with her mum most evenings so she could work these shifts. Evie's voice was steady when she talked about him, but I heard the undercurrent, the fear that if she failed at something new, it would hit him hardest. I shared my own dream. I would like my own repair spot, not a chain. Just a little place where I fix things without the corporate nonsense. No quotas, no upselling warranties people do not need. Evie looked at me, head tilted. "You would be good at that. You have got this steady thing, rare these days." From then on, I started helping with small stuff around the restaurant. One evening, she mentioned a flickering outlet in the kitchen. I grabbed my tools from the car and fixed it. Loose wire, easy. Another time, the espresso machine was acting up, grinding unevenly. I took it apart after close, cleaned the burrs, recalibrated it. Evie watched, leaning on the counter, asking questions like she actually cared about the process. She would pay me back in pie slices or leftover scones wrapped in foil with a doodle on top, a wrench or a coffee bean, but it was more than that. Her presence, the way she would sit with me after, talking about nothing and everything. Then I met Oscar. It was one of those rare dry evenings. Evie had to pick him up from her mum's after her shift, and she asked if I minded tagging along. "He has been hearing about the chap who fixes stuff," she said with a half smile. Her mum's place was a small house in the eastern part of Manchester, garden gnomes in the yard. Oscar came bounding out, backpack slung over one shoulder, a kid with messy hair and a grin full of gaps from lost teeth. He hid behind Evie's leg at first, peeking at me like I was being evaluated. "This is Theo," Evie said. "He fixes everything." Oscar sized me up, then dug into his bag and pulled out a crumpled drawing. A superhero with a cape holding a giant screwdriver like a sword. "This is you," he said, handing it over matter-of-factly. "Theo the Fixer." I laughed, unfolding it carefully. "This is awesome, mate. Thanks." He beamed, and Evie ruffled his hair. We drove back to her place, a modest flat not far from the restaurant. Oscar chatted about school, showing me more drawings in the car. That night, things deepened without us saying it. No kisses, no declarations, just gestures. Evie making extra pasta for 3, Oscar falling asleep on the sofa mid-story, me helping tuck him in. Each one carried weight, like we were building something real, even if we had not named it yet. The restaurant became our space, a permission slip to just be. No pressure, no games. And in those quiet hours after close, with the rain outside and the jazz turned low, I realized I was not faking anymore. It was a busy evening, and the restaurant was fuller than I had ever seen it. Tables filled with couples laughing over wine, a group in the corner toasting something, the hum of conversation blending with the jazz like white noise. I squeezed into my usual spot by the window, the rain lighter that night, just a mist fogging the glass. Evie waved from behind the counter, busy with orders, but she shot me a quick smile that said she would swing by soon. I pulled out a napkin and started doodling, a lopsided coffee cup with steam curling up, my attempt at paying her back for all the sketches she had left me. It looked ridiculous, but it made me smile to myself. I was midway through adding a wobbly handle when I heard my name. Theo. I looked up, and there she was. Lila, standing right by my table like she had materialized from some forgotten app notification. She had on a sleek coat, hair perfectly straight, that same polite smile from our date. The room seemed to shrink around us, the chatter fading for a second. "Did not expect to see you here," she said, pulling out the chair across from me without asking. "Mind if I sit?" I blinked, caught off guard. Sure." She settled in, folding her hands on the table. Her eyes scanned the room briefly, like she was checking for better options, then landed back on me. I wanted to apologize for last time. I was dealing with stuff. It was not my best night. I'm not always like that. I nodded slowly, not sure what to say. The memory of that dinner was not painful. It was just a reminder of how I had tried to force myself into someone's world that did not fit. Lila had been a symbol of that, someone who had made me feel like an afterthought. She leaned in a little. "You want to try again? For real this time? I know a place in the city center, nicer than this. My treat." She said nicer like it was a compliment to her. But it landed like a subtle dig at the brick walls, the candlelight, my half-eaten burger from last time. I glanced at the napkin in my hand, the silly doodle staring back. Part of me wanted to laugh at how out of place she looked here, but mostly I felt that old pull, the one where I used to think getting chosen by someone like her meant something. Right then, Evie appeared with 2 mugs of coffee. She set them down carefully, her expression calm, but her eyes were sharp, flicking over Lila, then settling on me with that quiet question. "You all right?" "Evening," she said, her voice even and professional, but she directed it more at me than Lila. "Need anything else?" Lila looked up, sizing her up. "We are good, thanks." Then, as Evie turned to go, Lila added, "You two know each other." Evie paused halfway through, picking up an empty glass from the next table. She glanced back, her tone simple, no edge. I work the evening shift. No explanation, no claim. But that non-answer said more than any territorial snap could have. Evie walked away, apron swaying, back to the counter like nothing had happened. Lila turned to me, eyebrows raised slightly. "Friendly staff here, huh?" She waited like she expected me to jump up and follow her out to that nicer place where things were polished and predictable. I looked down at the napkin again, the doodle I had made for Evie. Then I thought about that first night, the cold burger, the rain, her words. If I were you, I would stay. It was not flirtation, it was recognition. Someone seeing me not as a placeholder, but as someone worth sticking around for. "Thanks, Lila," I said, my voice steady, "but I am good. I am right where I need to be." She froze for a beat, then forced a laugh. "Your loss." She stood up, coat rustling, and walked out without another word. The bell jingled behind her, and just like that, she was gone again. The rest of the evening dragged a bit. The crowd thinned out. Plates clinked as Evie cleared tables. I stayed put, sipping my coffee, replaying the moment in my head. When closing time came, she locked the door, switched off the main lights, leaving just the warm glow over the bar. She came over, untying her apron, and sat across from me without a word at first. "You all right?" she asked finally, her voice soft. "Yeah, more than all right," I replied. She nodded, folding the apron neatly in her lap. Then she looked at me straight on. No dodging. "Theo, I am not simple. I have got Oscar. I am older than you. I have got a divorce that left scars, stuff I am still sorting through. I do not want you walking into this because you are lonely." Her words hit, not as a rejection, but as honesty, the kind I had not heard in a long time. I met her eyes. "I am lonely, yeah, but that is not why I am here. It is because with you I do not have to act like everything is perfect. I do not have to perform." She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. Then she reached out, her hand brushing the back of mine. Light, tentative, but deliberate. A silent yes. No fireworks, no dramatic kiss. Just that touch and the understanding that from that night on, we were not pretending this was just coffee anymore. A year later, and my life did not look like that creaky flat above the laundrette anymore. Not because I had hit some jackpot or turned everything upside down overnight. It was quieter than that. Small steps adding up, like soldering one wire at a time until the circuit works. Evie's dream, the one she had whispered about on a rainy night behind the counter, had become real. We called it Evie's, a little spot on the edge of Manchester, away from the city centre bustle, where people came for the quiet and stayed for the coffee. The sign out front was hand-painted, crooked letters in deep blue, and inside it smelled like fresh roasted beans, warm scones, and that faint hint of rain that never really leaves the city. We had built it together, piece by piece. I handled the wiring, running new lines for the lights, fixing outlets that sparked, setting up the sound system for her jazz playlists. She painted the walls a soft gray, hung shelves for mugs we had found at car boot sales. We bought an old espresso machine from a closing cafe. I spent a weekend tearing it down, cleaning the valves, recalibrating the pressure until it purred like new. There were nights we would stand in the middle of the half-finished space, dust on our clothes, laughing at how exhausted we were. No big loans, no investors, just us, scraping together what we had, turning a rundown storefront into something ours. My corner was by the window, same as always. A small workbench tucked away with my tools laid out, screwdrivers, multimeter, a bin for spare parts. Customers started bringing in their broken phones or glitchy tablets while they sipped lattes. Fixer in residence, Evie called it with a wink. I would tinker away, handing back a working device with their refill. It was not my full dream shop yet, but it felt like the start, steady, like she always said. Oscar was part of it too. He would come after school some days, backpack dumped by the door, sitting at the counter with crayons and paper. One afternoon he helped paint the open sign, smearing blue across the wood in big, uneven strokes. "It is a superhero shield," he declared, proud as anything. We hung his drawing of Theo the Fixer on the wall behind the till, right next to a photo of the three of us on opening day, grinning, covered in paint flecks. Evie did not say much when she saw it up there. just squeezed my hand and went back to steaming milk. We did not rush into marriage, not because we were not serious. It was deeper than that. We had both been through things that taught us rings and papers do not hold a life together. What we were building needed durability, the kind that comes from showing up every day through slow mornings and rainy closes. Oscar still called me Theo, but he would high-five me when I walked in or show me his latest superhero sketch. It felt like family without forcing the label. One rare sunny morning in Manchester, the kind where the sky cracks open blue and you forget about umbrellas, Evie and I were setting up tables on the small patio out front. Oscar was inside coloring a new menu insert. She handed me a black coffee, no sugar, and leaned against the doorframe, watching the street wake up. "You ever think about that first night at the old restaurant?" she asked, her voice soft over the hum of the neighborhood. I took a sip, the warmth spreading. "Every day. If you had not said that," she shook her head, cutting me off gently. "It was not the words that brought you back. You were ready for someone to see you, really see you." I did not argue. She was right. That night had been the crack in the door, but everything after, the runs, the doodles, the quiet talks, had pried it open. We stood there, the sun warming our faces, no need for more words. That evening, after we had flipped the sign to closed and wiped down the counters, I lingered at the till. Oscar's laughter filtered down from upstairs, where Evie was reading him a bedtime story, something about caped heroes saving the day. I looked at the photo on the wall, 2 coffee mugs by a rainy window, snapped on our soft opening day. Underneath, in Evie's neat handwriting, "Some things start when someone decides to stay." I breathed out, feeling the quiet settle. I did not run at night to escape the emptiness anymore. I still ran, but now it was to clear my head, to come back here, to this place, these people, a home where someone had chosen to see me and I had chosen to stay. That rainy evening in Manchester changed everything for me, Theo Marsden, in ways I could never have imagined. What began as a dreadful blind date with Lila taught me the most profound lesson of my life. Sometimes the greatest acts of courage and love are not the loud declarations or perfect first impressions, but the quiet decision to stay. When Evie looked at me across that candlelit table and simply said, "If I were you, I would stay," she was not offering pity, she was handing me a mirror to my own worth. In that moment, I realized how often we chase the shiny and the superficial, only to end up cold and alone with a half-eaten burger and a heart full of echoes. Yet the real magic happens when someone sees the cracks in your ordinary life. The creaky flat above the laundrette, the late-night runs through puddles, the rusty screwdriver that still carries your dad's steady hand and chooses to linger anyway. Evie stayed. She saw me, really saw me, and together we built something lasting. A little coffee shop on the edge of the city where Oscar's superhero drawings hang proudly and the smell of fresh beans mingles with the ever-present Manchester rain. That single choice to stay taught me that true connection is not found in apps or polished surfaces. It is forged in the patient, everyday decision to show up, to listen, and to believe someone is worth the effort. It healed the lonely parts of me I had stopped believing could be mended. If Evie's words and my journey have stirred something in your own heart, I would love to hear your story. Has there ever been a moment when someone chose to stay for you, or when you decided to stay for someone else? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this tale of quiet courage touched you, do subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss the next story that might just remind you why staying is sometimes the bravest thing we ever do. Thank you for being here with me.